So welcome. I'm Liesl Fenner. I'm the director of the public art programs at the Maryland State Arts Council, and really looking forward to the next grant round, the spring cycle that we're going to be highlighting here for our grant application public art across Maryland.
And I'm Ryan Patterson, the public art project manager. I work with Liesl and Rosa. Rosa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosa. I'm a program assistant and helping Ryan and Liesl.
Okay, I'm going to take us through the opening and grounding slides. Next slide. This is just a reference feature of some of the ways that this looks like the Google Meet screen, but well, maybe not, no, the Zoom screen. So we're just going to ask that you stay muted while we present until the Q&A section. And again, please put any captions in the chat. If you'd like to turn on closed captions, you can hit the CC below. Moving right along, our land acknowledgement statement is that we acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Accohonic Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Choptico Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanticoke Tribe, Nassau-Wawash Band of Indians, Piscataway Conoy Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Yagahani River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. And we acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationships with them can be fully restored. And there's more about that resources on our website. Next slide. MSCC's equity and justice statement is that the arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organization and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender, expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. Next. The vision of the Maryland State Arts Council is that it plays an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts, and our mission is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. Our goals are to increase participation, provide intentional support, embrace thoughtful and targeted approaches to build capacity, leverage connections, and bolster Maryland arts. Next. And our creative meeting actions are always to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, apply yes and, I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it, and to balance speaking and listening. So again, today we're going to go over a lot of the who, what, why, when, and where of our grant program. We're going to talk about what is public art, go over the grants, and we're going to have time for Q&A. You can also put questions in the chat as we go. And this is really similar to the presentation we gave in the fall grant round. So it's either going to be a refresher or the same presentation if you attended that one. Take it away, Liesl. This will be recorded, so you can refer to it later.
Yeah, so a lot of folks ask me, what is the definition of public art? And there are so many, but this one has really resonated over the years and is really inclusive of all that it can be. accessible work of any kind that cares about, challenges, involves, and consults the audience for or whom it is made, respecting community and environment. And I think we can just put this out here and, certainly add additional definitions as the field evolves and grows based on the work that artists are creating and producing for communities. And we're just really grateful that Maryland has a grant program that supports community-driven, artist-driven public art for public space. So I'm going to show you a few examples of public art in other states. These are some examples of temporary projects, and our grant does support temporary work. It can be up for any amount of time you decide or the community collectively decides. This was in the city of Seattle, where artists did interventions, installations around different neighborhoods. You can see these really creative downtown works that are very colorful, and it piqued the interest of people walking by the sidewalk. Again, they're temporary. If you didn't like it, they're going to go away. Sometimes temporary public art can actually lead to installing work long-term. It generates the interest to do more in a downtown area or a park or other site. This is by Buster Simpson and Peg Butler at a cafe in Portland, Oregon, where they have an outdoor cafe space. This was before COVID, before streeteries and the like, but Buster Simpson is known for his reclaiming and harvesting water. So water that falls on this planter that serves as a shade or protector for the bike rack below. All the water that falls during rains goes straight into this green water harvesting landscaping area nearby. And you could see the water in action with the photo on the right here. And this was really popularly received, and this great downtown business, I'm sure, is more popular by the fact that people want to check out this installation. Another one in Portland, it was temporary. Residents in neighborhoods got together to decide where they would like public art in their neighborhood, what sites needed attention or needed to be addressed. And the way we think of healing a community and the healing power of art, the artists came up with these very large scale acupuncture needles that, through an online app and popular consensus, were situated throughout key areas in Portland where the neighborhoods wanted public art to go. And so you can see he created multiples. They're at various sites around the city. There was an app that allowed people to, identify locations and then have people vote on it. So there's also ways of bringing in technology for community engagement in your project. And again, it can also be temporary. The acupuncture needles went away, and hopefully the city was able to do public art on those individual sites. We want to make a note about the public art creation. So artists clearly may create the artwork themselves, but there are also examples where the artists might work with a whole community. The community is all contributing and making work that goes in the final piece that's received by the community. And as well, there are artist ideas that are then created and fabricated by a fabricator. If you have an idea as an artist, but you don't necessarily have knowledge of the materials or tools, this is a great program to look into fabrication and having someone help realize your ideas. So we have the funding right now. We have over $1 million to award at the April 14th spring deadline. We had, the state had extra American Rescue funds from the pandemic, and the Maryland State Arts Council has seen increases across all of our programs. And we want your ideas. We want you to apply by April 14th. And let's make public art happen. Our various programs, just so to let you know, the creativity grant is another avenue for funding public art and artist-driven projects, and that amount has been raised to $4,000 because of the additional rescue funding we've received this year. You can apply monthly. So if you get your application in by the 5th of the month, and it's a very simple, straightforward application, you can hear back the following month. For larger scale projects, larger budgets that are more involved, that definitely have community engagement and is cited in a public location that's free and accessible to all, apply for the new artworks grants. Both organizations and independent artists can apply. It's open to both. We have for both the planning grant, you can apply for up to $10,000, or the project grant. The project grant is when you're ready to implement that idea. Everything's set, it's designed, you have permissions, it's ready to go. And this year only, it was raised to $50,000. So again, we have $1 million. There's a lot of grants that can be awarded. So this is the time to apply. I'm sorry, we still have our previous date. Oh, let me go back, of March 24th. The deadline is actually April 14th. If you're an organization and trying to conserve a public artwork in your community, please apply for a conservation grant. There are works across the state that need attention and care. We would love to see those receive some TLC. We award planning grants for conservators to create an assessment report. With that assessment, knowing how much the conservation is going to cost, what the conservation is going to involve, then you can apply for a project grant. Again, these grant amounts will stay the same. They're not impacted by the American Rescue funds. So for the new artworks grants, the public artwork must be new and original. If you have an artwork in storage and it's looking for a site, this is not the grant program for reciting that work. It's specifically being created for the Public Art Across Maryland program, for that specific site, for the particular community where that artwork is going to go. It can be inside or outside. It just needs to be fully accessible to the public to view it. You can apply with multiple projects and multiple artists, creating works. Let's say it's going to be a series. Let's say it's a public art festival. We're thinking about our whole downtown. That's fine. Just all the details need to be clearly laid out in your application. So who can apply? Independent artists. We encourage you to submit an application. You must be a Maryland resident. And students, unfortunately, are not eligible to apply for any MSAC program, as a matter of fact. As an organization, as long as you're a 501c3 or you're a unit of government, a municipality or county, if you're part of the University of Maryland system or private college, that's fine. K through 12 schools are eligible. We encourage our county arts councils and arts and entertainment districts to definitely come forward and apply. We'd love to see more work in your community. So which grant do I apply for? This is a central question we get in emails and telephone calls. So is your artist selected? Basically, by April 14th, do you know who is creating this artwork? Is the location selected? Like if it's a mural, is that wall been selected? Is it fully designed? Do we just have a napkin sketch of what we'd like it to be? That's not detailed enough. Is or has the community been involved? All of these grants are about community engagement. And so this is a critical point of the scoring and review process by our panelists. And most importantly, does it have permission to be installed? If there's any no answers to these questions, then you are ready to apply for a planning grant. And the planning grant is for exactly that, to support your time figuring out who the artist is going to be, the community engagement that's going to happen to plan the public artwork, the design time for an artist, or perhaps you're going to conduct a call to artists to develop proposals and ideas. It's very important to support artists in the development of proposals, not to request ideas for free. And we go into that in our Public Art 101 webinar, which is on the resources section of our Public Art webpage. You certainly can support any facilities for community engagement or a Zoom account, depending on how you're conducting that community engagement. But this is all dedicated in supporting your time or the organization's time, other people's time, and to develop that public artwork idea. So the application is really straightforward. You describe your planning process, and we encourage everyone to look at the scoring rubrics, which are on our website. So you can look at how you've answered the question and look at the scoring rubric and say, gee, have I scored a 5 or is mine more at a 1? So we really encourage people to be detailed and their description of what the public art planning process is going to be. The timeline, it's not just a week here, a week there, and that month. We need more detail of what's happening and when. This is all to help you plan out the details of creating this work for public space. So it's not just fulfilling, checking off our grant requirements, but it's going to serve as a guide for, your entire planning. The budget, we need to know those details as well. Like, again, you can charge for administrative fees or the artist fees or honorariums for developing proposals. Again, those equipment, or facility rentals for community engagement, Zoom fees. You also are eligible to hire consultants, perhaps a public art master planner or consultant, perhaps an architect who can help advise on the site, or landscape architect, computer graphics people, if you need help with the drawing renderings, all of that is eligible. So we have on our website a fill-outable PDF budget template that you should use for your application, either planning or project grant. We have a template for you, and you fill in your costs and then save it and submit it in the Smart Simple application. It's a very straightforward budget. As you can see here, you can add multiple lines describing what you're doing and what that expense is going to be. So you've completed all that planning. The artist is selected. You've identified the location. Your wall, let's say, for that mural is secured. The artwork is fully designed. We know exactly what that mural is going to look like. You have talked with the community. There's been engagement and how that mural design came about. And most importantly, you have permission from the owner of that building to install and create that artwork, as well as who is going to be responsible for maintaining the artwork. We need to know who's monitoring the site. If it's a sculpture out in public space, who's checking on it and making sure that it hasn't been vandalized? All of that is needs to be in place to apply for a project grant. So again, we have up to $50,000 this year for project grants. It's quite a lot of funding. You can do quite a large scale project or multiple projects. Again, you can pay artists, fabricators, contractors, and I mean general contractors. Let's say the site needs preparation, you need the bulldozers, or a wall needs repaired and it's beyond the skill set of your organization or the artists. This is, for the actual creation and installation of the artwork. If you need to rent equipment, lifts, scaffolding, tools to help create that work, or a larger studio space, or perhaps storage space if it's not going to be ready to be installed after you've finished it. Of course, it supports the materials, all the materials that it needs to create that public artwork. The transportation of the artwork to the site, definitely plan on the size of the road and a flatbed and what it might take to get it to where it needs to be. Oh, sorry, Beth. Let me go back. For project management, you can definitely charge a fee for the oversight, especially if an organization is overseeing the artists. We know that takes time and you should be compensated for that time. And don't forget to hire a professional photographer. I mean, let's highlight the great work that happens, the documentation of the process of creating the work, as well as that final piece. That goes a lot for the artist portfolio, as well as promoting the piece once it's in place. And then also share that photo with us. And do be sure to have a dedication event, celebrate the completion of the project. So whatever event costs go into that. So the project grant application is more involved. We do need a thorough project description of what this artwork is, how it came through a community engagement process, and will the community be engaged in its making or in its installation, or how the community might be engaged once it's installed. The experience of the artist, the panel needs to see that the artist has the skills or ability to create that artwork, and or the fabricator. So that can be a PDF compilation of background images. Again, the maintenance has to be established. We don't necessarily have to know how it's being paid for. We don't necessarily need to see a maintenance contract, but someone has to agree to take on oversight of this public artwork. We don't want to see orphaned public artworks that just start to deteriorate in public space. And I can tell you that happens across the states and the world. So again, we have the project budget template in Smart Simple. I'm sorry, on our website. You download it, fill it out, save it, and upload it into your Smart Simple application. Just download a Google map identifying where the site is. We'd like some help in, understanding, is it in the middle of a park, or again, on a downtown sidewalk? The schedule, again, be detailed. And this again serves as your roadmap. And artwork drawings. We need everything that communicates what it is you are creating. We need to understand the scale, the colors, if there's any finishes. So as more detail as possible. Again, the artist's background work and a letter of commitment. This is the letter of approval that you have permission to install this work in or at that particular site that you've selected. All right, here comes the fun part. So we've got a project idea. Ryan, I heard you're trying to create something.
Yeah, so I was hoping I could apply for a grant to fund this sculpture to tell people about this grant program. You could pay for this, right? This is the idea.
It's a good starting sketch, but I'm not really clear. It's a sculpture, but it looks like a sign right
Yeah, it'll be like
now.
a big sculpture, the words, I need like $25,000 and it's gonna dress up a vacant lot in my neighborhood.
Well, tell me more about that lot.
So the community had said this is kind of a messy lot and we'd be cool if there was something there. And then I thought I'll put these words there. And then people will know that they can apply for a grant. You know, and I like you can see there's a drop shadow, so it'll be like a little bit of the words will have some depth to them.
Okay, so I get the site. Wow, that would be cool to clean up the lot, improve. Great to hear that the community is on board. I'm not quite sure how big this is in relationship to a person. Do you have some dimensions, or what is this going to be made with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I better do some more research. Keep drawing it. Okay, so I thought about it more. And I talked to some people. So I have this idea, but I'm probably going to need to bring in some other people like to help me make it. So I talked to some fabricators and we can make it out of metal and I can probably afford it. You can see on the left, it'll be about a foot deep and maybe 5 feet tall. I realized that the only area I can probably install this is along the edge of the sidewalk, but I can't be right against the sidewalk. Once I talked to the city planner, they kind of clarified where I'm allowed to place artwork. And then I realized that I got to figure out how to put it in the ground. So I'm starting to explore ways to put those footers in and price out both how the letters will be mounted to the concrete and who can bring the concrete into that location.
All right, Ryan, you're on the right track. You just need to get those permissions in place, figure out how it's going to stand up, refine these drawings a little more clearly for the panel, and describe it in detail in your grant application.
So we were just, I think, going through some of the approaches that it can take. Like in that case, maybe it would have been best for me to start with a planning grant to go through some of that work, pay those fabricators to make those measurements and really give me better pricing on some of that work. And we brought this example back up as an example of, this is more of like a didactic sign of how a piece functioned, but back to that example that Liesl showed in the beginning where Buster Simpson had designed the kind of rain garden seating area. This is a similar proposal for a bike rack that collects stormwater. And you can just see how clearly the piece is laid out. It shows you in proportion to the building and the surrounding, how it would be installed. That's the kind of level of diagram that really helps our review panels understand what you're asking for funding for. Next slide. I'm going to put one of our excellent Maryland artists on the spot here and show these examples from Thomas Sterner's recently installed sculpture at the Salisbury Animal Health Lab. So to go through this process, Thomas received a commission to make this feather of monumental size, and he started with a rendering of what that feather might look like in place, as we can see up on the left. But to actually be approved to make that, he had to go far beyond. He had to show us how if we look at the image on the lower left, what's the sculpture and scale to the building, and where does it meet the ground plane? But then also what happens below the ground plane? How far down will the concrete footer go? And then even in the detail, we can see exactly what's the spacing of the material, and all that kind of information that might be valuable can go into developing a large outdoor sculpture for a public space. Next. And again, another great way to reference, are you on the right track, is to look at the scoring rubrics. on our website, we have scoring rubrics that show you exactly how your application will be reviewed and evaluated. And you want to compare your application materials against that to make sure you're on the right track. Next. Okay, so that's the end of our new artwork section. Before we go into conservation, does anybody have any questions?
I did.
Sure, please go ahead, Tiffany.
So I had, I was looking at the budget template and I didn't know, do you want us to use this as a reference or is it possible to type on it? I printed it out, but do you want us to write in our handwriting on it? Do you want us to list out each and everything? Or is there a way to, you know, like open it in a certain way and type it out?
That is a great question, Tiffany. I just put the link to the website where all of our new Artworks grant application materials are in the chat for everybody. But if you go to that page, the budget template that Tiffany's talking about is available. You should be able to download it, and then it should act as a PDF that you can just type numbers right into. I think you have to add it up yourself, but again, I think the fields should let you type into it. If you're having any trouble with that, give us an email and we'll work on it or check it out for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I wasn't able to do it, but I'll reach out to you. It might be something simple on my end. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Margot, do you have a question?
Yes, hello, thank you so much. I have 3 questions. One is, say we have a site and it needs a lot of work to make it habitable. It's just really needs a lot. And so we need to use a lot of the funding for like the ground prep, but we want to do sculptural benches and we want to put a few trees around for shade. Is that okay? I mean, what is the boundary for what is
That's a great
allowed?
question. So if you're creating an environment that all of those components that you just described are creating the experience for the person who comes into this space, that could be supported by the artist. So that key question, let's say about trees, certainly if you need trees that are going to, you know, be part of that experience or providing shade over the artwork or over the people viewing it, you've considered, you know, the other making the site flat or whatever it needs to be prepped to accommodate the artwork can be supported by the grant.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, I noticed that we have to submit a report for a planning grant. And it sounds like we have to have any outstanding reports submitted before we apply for a project grant. And do we have to have the planning grant submitted before we submit the project grant? Is that?
Yes, so you can't apply for you have one project. You can't apply for planning and project grant at the same deadline. So if the artwork hasn't been designed yet, you want that planning grant.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. What I meant is we're working on a planning grant now.
Okay.
Do we need to have the report for that submitted before the April 14th deadline to?
No, you can come forward and I'm sorry, you can only receive one planning grant or one project grant per fiscal year.
Okay.
So
let's talk specifically about that. Was the planning grant you received for the same location you would apply for the project grant for?
Yes.
It would probably be helpful to have as much of the planning report turned in. It's a pretty simple report, but to turn that in would be helpful for us to say to the panelists, yes, they completed the planning grant and this was the result.
Okay, thank you. Good to know that. Okay, can I ask one more? Okay, thank you. The other is the responsibility for maintaining the art. Can you expand a little bit? Like, say you have someone who owns the property and somebody else who's inhabiting the property who wants to be responsible for maintaining the artwork, and the artwork is going to be in a site where it's exposed to potential vandalism, you know, and we're designing it to absorb that, you know, like we all understand that. No one's, but how liable is that group that, you know, that's agreeing to maintain this artwork? Like what exactly am I asking them to do here when I say sign this thing saying you're going to maintain this art? Like what?
I mean, every situation is probably pretty nuanced. They're very depending on who the location, what's going on. I would just advise that you all work some agreement out. Like, for example, if we commission an artwork for a state building, the artist usually warranties it for a year, and then the building owner is the owner of that work long term. If it's a temporary piece or it's maybe a more community piece, maybe there's an agreement that I'm imagining if there's a vacant lot that's going to become a community garden, maybe there's an adopt a lot agreement or something that it sounds like you're saying somebody else is going to be at that space. You know, maybe the agreement is that they will notify you within X amount of time of vandalism or damage, and then you would respond. I think there just needs to be a process worked out or described to know that somebody will, so that if unfortunately something occurs, it's not just being thought of for the first time. Is that
Okay.
kind of
That's helpful,
not a
actually.
specific
Thank you.
answer, but I think
I don't want to drag you into too specific stuff for the public talk, but thank you. That's all helpful.
there's so many different cases that things could go. It would be possibly, you know, worth not to give you an obvious answer, but, you know, Googling some examples of maintenance agreements or public art maintenance agreements and just seeing what the variety of things may look like. And if there's any kind of agreement around this adopt a lot or lease of the property, maybe that has some kind of information about what happens on that space.
Okay, thank you.
So there was a question from OF Makara.
Yeah, if do you want to?
Yes, this is a fairly simple question, but I'm just wondering if everyone that's involved in the process has to be a Maryland resident. So for instance, somebody who does, so much is done online now. So there are different people you might engage to design your website or to do some of the planning. Do all of the people have to be in Maryland?
No,
The
the
lead artist
lead
needs to be around.
artist, just the lead artist.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Aylin? If you could unmute Aylin, Ruka Healing. Okay, Aylin, feel free to post your question in the chat. All right, Ryan, should we jump back into, we've got still some more slides about the conservation grant, so
Let's go into conservation and we'll have some more time for questions at the end. Okay, so the public art conservation grant. We're going to talk about the ways this grant can be used and some of the value of conservation to your community. Here's a image of one of our local conservators, Diane Fullick, doing conservation in downtown Baltimore. Next slide. So these are a few projects that have been funded since the creation of the conservation grant. The conservation grant's fairly new. I think it's been around for maybe 2 full fiscal years now. And there aren't, we haven't seen a ton of projects, but some pretty substantial pieces. The idea of conservation, I feel like, is kind of a new one to our public realm. While museums and institutions have conserved works for a long time and are maybe more familiar with how to carry it out, conservation can be quite an undertaking. And so it's a lot to gather a community group that can administrate a project. So some of the first and most successful pieces right away were conducted by museums. The BMA had the only Alexander Calder sculpture in Maryland conserved and reinstalled in its garden for public display. The AVAM Museum had the Vola Simpson giant whirligig conserved. And one of the other large pieces that got done was the community effort to have Art Benson's nut and bolt repainted. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of that. Hey, Aylin, why don't we just come back at the end? We're going to have another Q&A, or you can type it in. I just see your question in the chat. So what's the value of conservation? You know, these works get installed in public space and they last there for years, but they also can grow faded or get aged over time. And without a group of people who, kind of back to Margot's question of who's responsible for conservation, that's often left pretty open. So, this is Linda De Palma's Redwood Arch in downtown Baltimore from the 1980s that for years had sat quite faded and kind of almost forgotten looking, and people would think this piece is dated, or why do we have it? Should we remove it? But here it is, brand new, repainted. It looks like it came straight from the artist studio, and it really is a generative process. If we're going to invest in these things in our public landscape, then we should also invest in their long-term care, to show that we value the culture and the investment the artist has made in our community. Next. Conservation can also be generative. So the city of Chestertown has been able to work with a private donor and use our conservation grant to relocate artworks from a private collection into their downtown. So they're growing an art collection of public art through the conservation grant. Next slide. And it is a community effort. As you can see, the scale of these pieces can be tremendous. And so it takes a lot of planning. This is at a public school, and it took the PTO applying for the grant, working with the school system, getting approval from the local arts council, and then finding qualified industrial or commercial groups that could go through all the work of sanding, bondoing, repairing, and then eventually finally repainting this artwork to bring it back to its intended condition. But you can see that a piece here, like Art Benson's Nut and Bolt, though almost 40 years old, now looks brand new and as fresh as could be after that conservation treatment. Next slide. Sometimes demolition is inevitable, but we want to prevent it. And so this is just a recent unfortunate emergency demolition of a mural that was a vital part of West Baltimore's landscape by an important artist, Pontella Mason. So we hope that this funding will stop or slow down more of this kind of destructive loss and help to find ways to creatively preserve the artistic legacy of people who've built the community we're in. Next slide. So who can apply? For this grant, I guess the most important thing is that artists cannot apply directly to the conservation grant. These artworks exist in the public realm. They're usually property or under the ownership of some kind of institution or community group. And so we ask that it's some kind of a stakeholder in that ownership who applies, but that they should work closely with an artist, the original artist, if they're living, to see the work conserved. Next. It's very similar to the New Artworks grant. If you are still going through the research and planning process, if you're gathering your group of stakeholders, if you are still seeking a report about what the conservation work will entail, then you should apply for the planning grant. The planning grant can be applied to that community building and the conservation assessment, and the project grant can be applied to making the work happen. Next. Planning grants can support the administrative fees of the group conducting the work or gathering the team. It can be consulting fees, working with a professional conservator, honoring the time of the original artist. Maybe you need a specialist like a structural engineer. Maybe you're doing community engagement to figure out if the community wants to see this work conserved, or what goes into that. What should go into the process of conserving the work. Or you're doing collection management work. Every community that has a collection may need to build an inventory, digitize an existing inventory, or pay for software that can help share that information among stakeholders. Here we see an artist, Pat Alexander, showing her collection of photographs of her work at the Lexington Market Metro Station. Next slide. So the planning grant is up to $10,000, and the 3 questions for the planning grant are fairly simple. Describe the work being conserved, describe the planning goals or the community partners and stakeholders that will be involved, and describe the process and timeline. So this is the planning process. What will you be doing? Will you be interviewing the artist, looking back at old files, interviewing people that walk past this piece? Whatever you're going to do, we just need to see the timeline. Next slide. And the attachments are fairly simple. A budget, and again, the template's on our website, photos of the artwork, that can be current condition. If you have close-ups or details of damage, that's helpful. And then a photo or map. So in this case, we just see a sample where the Metro line was trying to do a general conservation report on all the pieces along the Metro. And so they kind of mapped out where the artworks were and what was going to be looked at. Next slide. The implementation grant goes beyond that. So it can fund the conservation and maintenance activities. It can also fund the relocation of artworks within Maryland. That can be from an artist from outside of Maryland, as long as the artwork ends up or is visible and accessible in Maryland. But it also can fund things like landscape improvements around a piece, lighting and electrical work, or plaques and interpretive signage. So the basic point in those last three is to make the work more accessible, more public, and more provide the public with more knowledge about what they're looking at. Next slide. The implementation grant is up to $50,000, and you would be required to include a project description. So if you did a planning grant ahead of time, maybe your planning process would inform the description, or you would just describe the work being done. That includes the relevance of the artwork to the location where it lives. Maybe that's the importance to the community, the amount of people who see it every day, the value it brings to that space. And then describe the goals of the conservation work and the timeline. Next slide. We also ask you to give us a list of the conservation team. These projects do not happen in, again, I think I've said this, but they don't happen in a small group. They're not led by one artist. To get the nut and bolt sculpture redone, this is a team of 2 conservators meeting with the artist, who is in his 90s, on site to compare paint colors and get his opinion about what the piece should look like. If the artist is around, we absolutely encourage you to work with them and pay them for their time. Gather all of the professionals and conservation specialists you need. This might go beyond art conservators and do material experts, lighting experts, painters, different kinds of contractors, and especially the owner. So who is going to, who technically owns the piece or is responsible for its maintenance and management in the present and long term. So again, using that school example, there was the principal of the school system itself, the community around the school, the local arts council, all had to kind of have a seat at the table in various points in the process to get involved. Next. So the attachments for the implementation grant include a conservation budget, photos of the artwork, again, details are helpful, maybe even before, photos of like when the work was installed versus now, a report, if you've worked with a conservator, describing the condition and the scope of work that needs to go into the conservation, plans, drawings, renderings, anything that can help illustrate the process, the same way we talked about plans and drawings and renderings that can help illustrate your new artwork, having any kind of documentation about the work you'll conduct or the work that needs to happen, and then a letter of support from the site owner and or artwork owner. So that could be the mayor of your municipality, that could be the director of the nonprofit or the community association, but some group that is responsible for that work needs to sign off that they acknowledge you're applying for this funding and that they will give you permission to proceed if the funding is awarded. Next. And again, we provide the scoring rubrics. So the rubrics give you a good indication of how to plan your project and compare the narratives you're drafting against that rubric. We'd encourage you to, even if you have time to draft something and let someone else read it in comparison to the rubric, that can be a helpful way to kind of check your work before you turn the application in. Next. So in general, we have some reminders about our schedule and next steps, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So a reminder, this is our spring application and the deadline is April 14th. You can expect to be notified if you were awarded a grant by June 14th. And that is only the notification. That doesn't mean that you'll have the funding, but the notification comes and then you will be sent a grant agreement form if you're awarded. You'll sign that grant agreement form in Smart Simple and return it. And then it takes up to 8 weeks. And more often than not, it's taking the full 8 weeks to receive your check after you sign the grant agreement form. So this is really important to note. You can begin your work on either project as soon as you've been notified and signed your agreement. You can start working as soon as you know you have been awarded the grant, but you will not have that check for probably 8 weeks after you've signed that agreement. So if you need that money to start, it may not be until August that you receive it. Some groups are able to front the money once they know that it's coming and begin work, but the check will not be in hand for up to 8 weeks after the agreement is signed. Next. Again, just a reminder that the applications are submitted via Smart Simple on our website. It is not a requirement that you have to have a planning grant in order to apply for a project grant. A lot of people have received planning grants and expect to come back, but you can go straight for a project grant. You can have received a planning grant and a project grant in the same fiscal year. But if you received a project grant in the fall, you cannot apply for another project grant this round. You will be eligible to apply for another project grant after the fiscal year changes in July. And an applicant cannot receive 2 project grants in 1 year. Next. So the big reminder is also, before you are welcome to come back to Lisa and I with questions about any of this, but you should also download and read the full guidelines. The guidelines for each grant is available on the webpage for that grant in a yellow box. There's some boilerplate at the front, and then the details about that grant usually get started about the 7th or 8th page of the document. We are here to help. There are resources on the website, but we do a lot of calls and technical assistance, so we're happy to do that. You can email us to set up an appointment. I think that's it. So we're open for questions. Let's go to the person who had asked before.
I think that was Aylin.
Hi.
Hey, Aylin.
Hi, it's Aileen.
Hi.
And sorry if I feel kind of rough. I'm having COVID for the first time.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah. So something that I'm noticing is like a lot of this is geared towards more like material-based projects with sculptures and like visual work. And I kind of work with more like community events and interactions, more time-based or like installation-based work. And I'm just curious how to translate that into the language for these kinds of grants, or is that not even stuff that's covered? I'm also like forming a collective with some folks, and we're kind of focusing on it's a bunch of herbalists, and so we're focusing on creating healing opportunities and resources for the community. And with that, we also see working collaboratively and collectively in creating art for our community as like a part of that process, if that makes sense. So yeah, any guidance that you can provide would be really helpful.
So Lisa, do you want to respond or do you want me to?
You could.
So, I would just say that, I think we value those types of practices and absolutely see them as contributing to types of community and public art. This grant does tend to fund and focus on things that are going to have like a physical, tangible, visual art project. I think we could talk, if you have a specific project in mind, we would be happy to have a call to discuss it and go into ways that maybe you could sort of fit in the grant application. Like you were mentioning, events and festivals, I always find those are great places to do trial projects or build experience as a public artist. But our grant would not fund, say, like the public art grant would not say fund like a musical performance or something that doesn't have a physical artwork attached to it, add an event like that. It would fund a temporary project as part of an event, temporary sculpture, temporary visual artwork, I guess. But we'd be happy to chat more, I think, about your specific scenario.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. I'll kind of write down some more specific examples and reach out to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I did just answer a question in the chat box about, artists applying for, their fee and a planning grant. Certainly, if you are, managing the process from start to finish, that is part of your fee. So you're supporting, your hours and time. As well, sometimes projects don't work out and we don't penalize you if a, process hasn't, is just not going to work. But, you have over a year essentially to really do that grassroots planning to try and make it happen, or to take a left turn and figure out what, solution might work for the community. It's, your process to drive. So, and we work with you the whole time, trying to strategize, where Ryan and I are here for any meetings you'd like to set up and however we can help. So yeah, thanks for putting our emails there. We're kind of at time now. I'm sorry we don't have more time for questions, but again, feel free to reach out. We're happy to set up a meeting. Please don't wait to apply at the last minute. We are happy to help with some advance notice, but if it's the day before the application or even the week before the application, that's a pretty tight turnaround to try and get substantive assistance. So reach out as far in advance as you can. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day of great information.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Okay.